Tombstone wasn't meant to last. It was a silver camp dropped in the middle of Apache country, violent, corrupt, and built too fast to stand. But somehow it stuck, not because it was strong or even lucky, but because people wouldn't let it die. Today isn't remembered for Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, and one 30-second shootout. But the real story, it's stranger, bloodier, and a whole lot messier. This isn't about good guys and bad guys. This is about a town that burned through money, bullets, and men, and then came back as a myth. Tombstone started with a warning. Ad Shefflin was out scouting for ore in Apache territory when soldiers at Camp Huachuca told him the only thing he'd find out there was his own tombstone. And of course, he took the joke seriously. When he struck silver, that's exactly what he named the claim. By 1879, the claim became a tent city. By 1881, it was a booming town with 2 newspapers, 3 banks, 4 churches, 14 gambling halls, and more than 100 saloons. The streets were alive, sometimes with music and sometimes with gunfire. The silver came fast, so did the people. Miners, drifters, prospectors, politicians, showgirls, preachers, and killers. Some came for opportunity, and some came to hide. Tombstone didn't care. Water had to be hauled in. Lumber had to be shipped by wagon. Law had to be improvised. But none of that mattered, not when the silver veins were being pulled from the ground worth thousands of dollars a foot. It was chaos, controlled only by money, reputation, and the size of your gun. The town was young, rich, and untamed, and like most things that burn too bright, it wasn't going to last. In the Arizona territory, the word cowboy didn't mean ranch hand. It meant rustler, outlaw, border smuggler, and in Cochise County, it meant power. The Cowboys weren't a formal gang. They were a loose but dangerous network. Men like Curly Bill Brocious, Johnny Ringo, the Clantons, and the McClary brothers. They ran stolen cattle from Mexico, robbed stagecoaches, and moved guns, whiskey, and people across the border. What made them untouchable wasn't their firepower. It was their relationships. Sheriff Johnny Behan turned a blind eye. Local ranchers relied on them for cheap beef. Judges, deputies, and business owners looked the other way, especially if a few silver coins passed hands. Some feared them. Others simply knew not to interfere. They didn't dress like movie villains. They blended in. They drank in the same saloons, spent money in the same stores, but everyone in town knew. If you crossed the Cowboys, you didn't get a second chance. They could laugh with you one night and put you in the ground the next. The law was uneven. Behan protected his side. The courts took sides depending on who showed up with more witnesses or more influence. And out in the desert, where there were no rules, the Cowboys ruled everything. They weren't hiding in the hills. They were part of the landscape. That's what made them dangerous. Wyatt Earp didn't come to Tombstone to play hero. He came to build a future, and maybe a fortune. He brought his brothers, Virgil and Morgan, and they carved out positions of authority fast. Virgil was a deputy U.S. Marshal. Morgan worked under him. Wyatt floated between influence and opportunity. Then came Doc Holliday, gambling, sick, violent, and loyal only to the people he liked. And he liked Wyatt. The Earps weren't pure. They backed saloons, enforced the law selectively, and held a grudge like a badge. But they weren't the Cowboys, and in Tombstone, that made them enemies. Tensions escalated through 1881. Fights, threats, and gunfire just shy of murder. It all came to a head on October 26th. That afternoon, Virgil deputized Wyatt, Morgan, and Doc. The Cowboys, Billy Clanton, Frank and Tom McClary, and Ike Clanton, were reportedly armed and gathered in an empty lot behind C.S. Fly's photo studio, near the OK Corral. The Earps approached. No one knows exactly what was said. Some witnesses claimed the Cowboys were surrendering. Others swore they went for their guns. What followed was 30 seconds of thunder. When the smoke cleared, Billy Clanton and both McClary brothers were dead. Virgil and Morgan were wounded. Wyatt and Doc were untouched. Ike Clanton had run. The town went quiet. Some said it was justice. Others called it murder. A hearing cleared the Earps, but the court of public opinion stayed split. The fight wasn't over. It had just gone underground. Don't worry, this is just a sliver of the video. It's not all of it. The gunfight didn't solve anything. If anything, it made everything worse. 2 months later, someone ambushed Virgil. A shotgun blast ripped through his left arm and shoulder. He barely survived. His days as a lawman were over. A few weeks after that, Morgan Earp was shot through a saloon window while playing billiards. The bullet severed his spine. He died before his boots hit the floor. Wyatt was done waiting for the courts. He gathered a posse, Doc Holliday included, and rode out. No warrants, no judge, just vengeance. Over the next few weeks, the Cowboys started turning up dead. Frank Stillwell was gunned down near a rail yard in Tucson. Wyatt claimed he spotted him lying in wait for Virgil. Witnesses heard multiple gunshots and found Stillwell's body riddled with holes. Florentino, Indian Charlie Cruz, was found hiding in a ranch house. The posse dragged him outside and shot him on the spot. Curly Bill Brocious, one of the most feared cowboys, died in a gun battle near Iron Springs. Wyatt claimed he took a shotgun blast and kept firing, killing Curly Bill with a single return shot to the chest. The vendetta ride left a trail of blood across southern Arizona, and not everyone the Earps killed ever got a chance to stand trial. When it was over, Wyatt Earp was no longer a lawman. He was a man on the run. The federal government never charged him, but the town never fully forgave him either. By the time he left Arizona territory for good, Tombstone had already started to fade. The silver was still on the ground, but the heart was gone. Even as the bullets stopped flying, something worse crept in: water. In 1882, the mines started to flood. At first, they tried to fight it. Pumps, deeper shafts, more labor, but the water kept coming. The deeper they dug, the more expensive it became to keep the silver dry. Investors got nervous, profits shrank, and then came the fires. One in June 1881, another in May 1882. Both tore through Tombstone's business district. The first burned half the town. The second wiped out what was left of the core. Hotels, saloons, stables, offices. Gone. They rebuilt, but the energy was different. Slower, quieter, people started drifting away. Miners left first. Then the gamblers. Then the investors. Within a few years, Tombstone was still standing, but it wasn't living. The streets were still there, but the noise was gone. The silver stayed buried, the promises didn't. Tombstone didn't go out with a bang. It drowned. Then it burned. Then it faded. Tombstone should have become a footnote, just another boomtown that flared up and burned out. But the name stuck. By the early 1900s, people were visiting not to mine, but to stare. They asked where the gunfight happened, where the Earps stood, where the Cowboys fell. Locals pointed them to the wrong spot. Didn't matter. They were buying the story, not the facts. The Birdcage Theater, left mostly untouched since the 1880s, became a monument to vice. Bullet holes in the walls, whiskey bottles left behind, stories of laughter, murder, and whispers in the dark. Boot Hill Graveyard became a tourist stop. Crooked wooden markers, dark-humored epitaphs. Here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs from a 44. No less, no more. Tombstone leaned into the legend. Reenactments, costumes, gunfight shows, timed to the hour. And under all that, the real town stayed buried. You can still feel it, though. Under the boards, behind the tour signs. Something raw, something restless, like the town knows it was never supposed to be a legend. But legends sell better than ruins. Tombstone didn't survive because it was strong. It survived because we never stopped telling stories about it. We wanted the gunfight, the showdown, the black hats and the white hats, and Tombstone gave it to us, whether it really happened that way or not. The real town was full of contradictions. Lawmen who broke laws, outlaws with friends in high places, a sheriff who sided with the criminals, a marshal who shot first and asked questions later. But the myth, that was clean, fast, and marketable. It became the symbol of frontier justice, the last breath of the Wild West, the place where good men stood their ground and evil men paid the price. That version was easier to print, easier to sell, easier to believe. And in a country that sometimes prefers stories of history, Tombstone became immortal. Not everything in Tombstone stayed buried. Long after the gunfight stopped and the silver dried up, people began to notice strange things. Cold spots where there shouldn't be. Shadows where no one stood. Sounds echoing through buildings left empty for decades. Take the Birdcage Theater. It was one of the wildest buildings in town during its heyday. 24 hours of gambling, drinking, and anything else you were willing to pay for. It's said that 26 people died there. And according to locals, not all of them left. Visitors report hearing footsteps on the balcony when no one's there. Whispered voices drift through the poker rooms. Cold air rolls out of sealed off tunnels. One tour guide said she saw a woman in a red dress step out of the wall and vanish before her second step hit the floor. Even the floorboards seemed to groan with memory. Then there's Boot Hill Graveyard. It's full of outlaws, vigilantes, and unlucky drunks with nowhere else to go. That used to be me. Don't judge me. People say they've seen figures standing near the crooked crosses at night, only to disappear when approached. One man left a silver coin on a grave for luck, then crashed his car less than an hour later. Another tourist picked up a rock near a headstone as a souvenir. She mailed it back a week later, along with a letter begging the town to, quote, take the curse off. Some stories are tall tales, but in Tombstone, enough people keep seeing the same things that even skeptics start looking over their shoulders. Because in a town with this much unfinished business, maybe it makes sense that not everyone has moved on. And honestly, in reference to like lady that mailed the rock back, If you go to if you go to Petrified Forest National Park and you check out their little like gift shop thing there, there's like rocks that kids had taken and then like mailed it back because they were getting bad luck, and they have their letter with the rock that they took from the national park up in there. And it's pretty cool that a lot of people are like, I took this and now I've been having bad luck forever. Like, and if you're driving through and you're able to cut through the Petrified Forest National Park, check it out for sure, 100%. It's really beautiful. It's a really quick drive. If you're going west, you're going to drive right through and go that way anyway. Same if you're going east, you're able to access the highway from both ways, and it's just a nice little drive. Anyway, carrying on. Tombstone doesn't live in a memory. It clings to people. Locals say the town has a way of choosing who stays and who runs. Reenactors talk about getting sick only while dressed in character. Tour guides say lights turn off by themselves even when the power's fine. Some refuse to walk alone through certain alleyways after dark. Then, there are the artifacts. Visitors who steal souvenirs from the graveyard or birdcage theater often send them back, sometimes with apologies, sometimes with stories of accidents, illness, or nightmares. One woman mailed back a poker chip saying her husband started sleepwalking the night she brought it home, mumbling about someone named Billy who needed a gun. The town itself feels like it's holding on to something. Maybe pride, maybe pain, maybe both. It's not a stretch to think all that blood, desperation, and grief left something behind. Some call it energy, others call it a haunting. Whatever it is, it's part of Tombstone now. The violence may be gone. The silver may be gone. But the story has teeth. Some towns rot, others get paved over. But Tombstone echoed. It echoed through dime novels, early films, and cigarette smoke. Through reenactments and old men telling half-true tales at the edge of town. Through dusty windows and empty saloons that still creaked when the wind gets mean. It shouldn't have made it this far, but somehow it did. Not because of what it was, because of what we wanted it to be. This was Cracked Relic, and this was a deep dive on Tombstone. Thank you for watching, and as always, sources are down below in the description and coming up next in the credits. Thank you for watching.
So many days is yet to come. Too many times has come to pass. Too many moments put aside. Get